We have a talk on reimagining Superfund within historic mining districts, and a legal panel discussion. And this was put together, this panel, by Paul Nazaryk and Anthony Edwards, are kind of the instigators of this talk. They're both attorneys here, Anthony here in Silverton, and Paul down in the Durango area. And they pulled together some other experts on circular law to kind of give us a panel discussion. And I think this would be very interesting because it's different from the type of presentations that we often do. There's really a great deal of legal knowledge and expertise on this panel. So I think we're going to start off here.
I'd like to read a book. Thanks. I think I'm myself. So,
Yeah, you got it. We got it.
As Peter mentioned, Paul and I are the instigators, but actually it's Paul who put this great panel together, and we're so kind to let me join them all. These experts for today. I want to just tell you about Paul and then let Paul take it from there. Paul is an environmental consultant and an attorney with Bramble Corporation in Durango, with extensive experience in both Superfund and hazardous waste remediation projects. His private sector experience includes working with as corporate counsel for BHP, Philippine, a major international mining company, and within the public sector, Paul has worked at the Colorado Department of Health and Environment and U.S. Water Resources Council, and a former congressman on environmental matters. He earned his JD from the University of Denver and a master's degree in environmental policy from Colorado State University. He's licensed here in New Mexico and in Montana. I just want to say that Paul has taken an interest from right after the spill and actually has been around the mountains longer than that. It's been interesting in what's going on. Consider him a good friend and just a great mind. So if you get a chance over the next couple of days, you see Paul, feel free. He's really approachable and great guy. Well, thank you.
I'd like to introduce Anthony and the rest of the panel. I'm going to start with Stan Dempsey. And I've known Stan for about 20 years. Stan and I go back to when he worked for the Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry. And he always had this incredible knack. Like, imagine a herd of cats wanting to go off in different directions. Stan would somehow discern from this group of people where they needed to go and would herd them. And he was really phenomenal at that. He really showed he has a lot of leadership abilities. And Stan, in addition to working for the Colorado Association of Commerce and Industry as a lobbyist, was the president of the Colorado Petroleum Association. And for the last few years, he's been the president of the Colorado Mining Association. And I really appreciate the fact he's driving up here, late last night, like John, missing elk and moose even, I guess. But and then running back again to get back to Denver. So I really appreciate that. But yeah, so that's Stan. John, I've known even longer, which is hard to imagine. I've known John since 30 years ago when I was going to law school at the University of Denver at night. He was my environmental law professor. And, after working on Capitol Hill and working for the Water Resources Council and the state of Colorado, I thought I knew everything. I learned I knew nothing. And John basically got his law degree also at the University of Denver, and he's a fellow also Colorado State University graduate. And for the last few years, John's been working for the law firm Spencer Fain. He is a trial attorney, and you'll see his manner when he speaks. He's incredibly articulate. When Anthony and I were at the SME and the Colorado Mining Association conference, he blew us away with his understanding and his ability to just really simplify Clean Water Act issues.
You are really setting us up.
I know. and so we're going to have John also drafted a bill that he's going to be talking about really toward the beginning of the presentation. And that's the Colorado Good Samaritan Bill of 2020. So that'll be really fascinating to sort of set the discussion. And then finally, last but not least, is my good friend Anthony Edwards. And Anthony is, what everybody knows Anthony, but he's the judge, he's San Juan's only attorney, but he also just understands all sorts of aspects of environmental law and real estate law, and you name it. And Anthony went to law school at the University of New Mexico, and he also has a master's degree in water policy from there. And he also worked for New Mexico Environment Department in the Water Resources Program. And he's been around Silverton for 20 years almost. And he's served as the communications director, and Anthony is involved in so many issues in this county. It's really a pleasure to have him on this panel. So I think we can go ahead.
So we're going to start off. Paul, I think this is.
Sorry. 1 second.
We're searching.
Yeah. There we go.
Maybe we're starting with John. Which is okay. All right. Actually, we're starting with you, Anthony.
So the agenda we had our introduction, we're going to talk about a little background on Paul and I, and then we'll go ahead and go to John on the Good Samaritan.
Trying to advance it. Should advance.
So one of the questions we always have is, why are we talking about this? Well, one of the reasons is because CERCLA, there's an L in that acronym that we learned earlier, which most of us probably already know, and it's liability. And to understand how we're approaching these, particularly when it comes under the Superfund, and this one's a little bit different from other Superfunds. I call it the Scholarship Silverton because we are going down because of the Gold King spill, right? And if we look at the Gold King spill right now, we have approximately $4.1 billion in damages that are claimed. Let me make everybody clear on this. That's not a misprint. There wasn't an M that was supposed to be there. That's a billion. $4.1 billion. So, and in this, we have, related to the Gold King, we have class action suits, we have state and tribal claims, we have federal tort claims, and we have Superfund really under the response under Superfund. We're not talking about national priorities. A billion here and a billion there starts to add up, and people start to. Then we have what's coming is the Bonita Peak CERCLA NPL litigation. We aren't there. Maybe we don't go there. We don't know yet. A lot of people speculate there will be, and that's really the national priority. That is the Superfund that everybody thinks about, where the Bonita Peak Superfund, we haven't gone there yet. You have natural resource damages that will come following that. That's another type of litigation that we will be in. I'm talking about we as the collective we, because we have the government involved, and we have private citizens involved, and we have land management agencies involved. And then we have the AOCs. And earlier, Jason was talking about the AOCs and how they are doing those outside the Superfund, and that's $10,000 legal costs. And I can tell you there's some people, for those who weren't in the room that time, they wish they only had $10,000 in legal costs. There is a project that's been worked on inside the county that was probably $250,000 has been spent on it inside the Superfund, and only $50,000 approximately is going on. So it's important for you to understand that when Jason talks about earlier, when he was talking about how those approaches work with Good Sam, that's a different cost than what it costs for people to work through these issues after you become Superfund. And with that, there's a question I'm happy to answer, but I just want to set everybody up. We're talking about real money here, to both private individuals as well as government agencies, land management agencies who are potential responsible parties, and then the EPA working through that administrative issue. So,
So I think the key point in this slide, and we've talked about this before, Superfund is no longer a fund, okay? Even though it started that way, okay? It was based on a petrochemical tax that expired in 1995. And it generated quite a bit of money, $12.7 billion, which was used for site remediation. But the fund has really been exhausted since the early 2000s. And now this funding relies on what I still consider is uncertain congressional appropriations. And the last 5 years or so, it's been pretty consistently about $1 billion. Okay, that's a lot, but when you start looking at the cleanup for some of these mining sites, the estimated cost for the Cuesta mine site in New Mexico is about $1 billion. With that in mind, and considering there's 1,350 Superfund sites in the country, and probably more to be added at some point. And the problem is going to be, we could be doing this maybe not even for decades, but for centuries. Now, Superfund itself really came about because of Love Canal and the Valley of the Drums, okay? And that suggests to me that it really wasn't designed for mining sites, complex historic mining sites. We've heard, and we heard from Stephen today, basically the Bonita Peak Mining District is one of EPA's priorities, and they're trying some new things here. Adaptive management, which is darn innovative, and we appreciate that. But again, administrations change, priorities change, and again, as other sites rise to the surface, we don't always know that the money will be there. So again, Superfund was really not designed for mining sites. Again, it was urban sites, Love Canal, okay, where it comes from. And we've already talked a bunch about Good Samaritan legislation, and John will be talking about it in a minute. There's some other statutes out there that have been used for mining cleanups. And the one I'm most familiar with is the Federal Surface Mining Control and Reclamation Act. Because when I worked for BHP, that was a tax on coal products. And in essence, basically, the tax is based upon 28 cents a ton for surface of coal and 12 cents for underground. Now, that tax could be going away, and of course, as we're moving toward more renewable sources of energy, there's less coal mines, so that tax is declining too. But what SMACRA did was create this abandoned mining fund, okay? And it was based on the severance tax. And it raised, over the years, about $11.3 billion, and it spent about $9 billion. And so that's actually a model that has been used in the coal mine industry. And, one of the things I noticed when I started looking at some of the sites on the national priorities list, you don't see really coal sites there. And that doesn't mean there's not a problem with them. They are. It could be that they're better managed, is my speculation there. And then, of course, there's the Uranium Mill Tailings and Remediation Control Act, UMTRA. And this was, actually, John knows this much better than I, because he's been involved in this. And maybe, John, could you just talk a little bit about that? Would you mind jumping in here?
I grew up in this world, the environmental decade of the 70s. We have NEPA 1969, our most famous environmental president, Richard Nixon, signed NEPA in 69, Clean Air 70, Clean Water 72. After that, then, we had the passage of SMACRA in 1978, UMTRA in 1978, RECLA in 1976. We didn't have regulation for RECLA until 1980, but the environmental decade of the 70s is where this all came from. And Paul and I grew up in that world. Stan is much younger than me, so we don't.
And Anthony's even younger than that.
But UMTRA deals with the front end of the fuel cycle, producing uranium mills that produce the U3O8 that goes into the nuclear fuel cycle, but also deals, as SMACRA does, with the remnants of that. So we have the titles of UMTRA that dealt with the abandoned abandoned mill tailings that are actually used on the west slope in foundations for homes, etc. And they have to go in and clean those up and remove those tailings and then isolate them in other places. We now have recognition that they didn't get it all, so we're now going back to revisit that after the fact cleanup. And SMACRA and Nazaryk created those, let's go fix it. We blew it before. We didn't know the concerns about mill tailings. We didn't realize that putting it in the foundations of homes outside concrete is going to increase the radon in the basement. Well, let's go deal with it now. SMACRA did the same thing. A lot of abandoned mines, let's go deal with it. Both of these federal laws, in contrast to other situations, and I'll talk a lot about that in terms of the funding for voluntary cleanup, you got billions of dollars going into those programs. We don't have it for voluntary action.
Then there's other approaches out there too, of course. And again, I spent some time for a client looking at approaches that are used in Australia and Canada. They do exist, but they're usually state or provincial level. So, and just like Montana has a mining severance tax program, and they fund some of their own cleanups too. One thing that we talked about before is that we are at the top of the watershed here. We're where everything flows down, and this is where some of the mining issues occur. And the water is used all over the place. And it could be that, and a perfect example would be up on top of Fremont Pass. There's the old Climax mine. And they have a water treatment operation there, which I was told by a person that used to work for Freeport-McMoran. They treat 1/6 of Denver's water supply, which is substantial. That's where it comes from. And so, is there some way to actually get some fund for treating the water as far as users' fees are concerned from the downstream interests? That's just another thought. Do you want to talk about adaptive management?
Sure, and this is, so adaptive management, there were 6 pilot projects around the country that the administrator for the EPA has chosen, and anybody from the EPA, feel free to weigh in if I misstate anything here. And so they're using an adaptive management approach. This came out of the Superfund task force, learning by doing, for large and complicated sites. This is a large and complicated site. Develop the site management plan incorporating adaptive management principles based upon existing goals. The EPA goals, those goals have been stated. And then the water quality improvements, stabilize source areas, minimize unplanned releases. Those are the goals and site strategy, and then based upon existing goals. And it's an iterative process, and it's being developed for the Bonita Peak right now, and will be over the next 5 to 6 months. This has been presented as a new approach to try to facilitate the working inside the Superfund sites more efficiently and effectively. If there's anybody from the agency that wants to weigh in right now, you may. I just wanted to bring that up because there is what has been presented at least as a different approach in trying to work more efficiently at this time. And so with that, all yours.
Thank you. I'm going to take a totally different approach to this in terms of the overview you just heard about Superfund. I'm not going to talk about Superfund. I'm going to talk about a piece of the puzzle that's missing. Mr. Cook talked about the evolution of the environmental control world. It's been 50 years since we signed NEPA. We've dealt with NEPA for 50 years. We've dealt with Superfund for now 40 years. And what we've seen in the Superfund world is an evolution. What we've seen in clean air and clean water is an evolution of the law. What we've seen in record and hazardous waste is an evolution of the law. And there's a big piece missing, particularly when we talk about voluntary cleanups. Good Samaritan laws are driven by something that has absolutely nothing to do with mine reclamation. Typical Good Samaritan law, the focus is protecting individuals from being good Sams or good Samanthas with regard to accidents. I drive that mountain road between Ouray and here. I happen to see that a car has gone down in the ditch. I see that it's burning. I go down and I help the gentleman out of the burning car, save his life. But in the process, the medical doctors tell me, he already had a broken back. And when you dragged him out of that valve, you really made it worse. He's now paralyzed for life. If you'd left him there and allowed the emergency technicians to get there, he might be walking today. That's the liability that the Colorado Good Samaritan law that's now in the books protects me from. I'm a volunteer. I'm trying to help somebody who's just broken their leg, broken their neck in a ski area. You're protected. I'm a physician. You land at that site in an emergency setting, I'm protected. That's what the laws typically do. An example would be the Virginia law. This is actually a reference to it. How does it work? It's under Virginia law. These are all available online. All 50 states in the District of Columbia have Good Samaritan laws that protect individuals from that type of civil liability. One state, Pennsylvania, has it with regard to voluntary cleanups of abandoned mine sites. This is the Colorado Good Samaritan law. Persons rendering emergency assistance are exempt from civil liability. We walk through it. This law is written this way, a licensed physician, and this is the critical language for the bald guy up here. Physician, surgeon, or any other person. If this phrase weren't in here, I wouldn't touch that gentleman down there for him. Of course I would. But you don't, probably most of you didn't realize that you're protected by this type of voluntary action. So, physicians, any other person, are not liable for civil damages, for acts of omissions made in good faith, unless you do it grossly negligently or willfully and wantonly. The statute goes on. Section does not apply to any person who renders emergency care or assistance to a patient he is otherwise obligated to cover. So a question a law student asked me, it says he. You've already told us, Mr. Watson, that you're a defense trial lawyer. You're always looking for ways to get your client out from under, right? So, does this section apply to women? Laura, see, of course it does. Volunteer members of a rescue unit are exempt from liability under Colorado law. Licensed physicians acting as volunteer in ski patrol, they're exempt from civil liability. Employers whose employees go help someone are exempt. So that sets the stage. If you're being a good person, trying to help out, it didn't cause the problem, or we're already responsible somehow, a good Sam or a good Samantha should not have to worry about being liable for voluntarily helping to fix the problem. And that should be the same situation in Colorado for volunteers, good Sams to come in and help with abandoned mine sites. It's not the case. What's the problem? Wherever you have mineral development here, you'll have abandoned mines, oil wells, and operations. Wherever in the United States, you're going to have those issues. East Coast, Midwest, and out here in Colorado. For some problems, there's lots and lots of money. This is just an example of the Office of Enforcement Financial Business Management System. These are data. Abandoned Mine Land Reclamation Fund from 1977 to 2018, $11.2 billion as of September of last year. But not for these problems. The big one, Gold King. When I met with the Colorado Department of Health yesterday to talk about the bill that I wrote, it's called the Colorado Samaritan Law of 2020. I was reminded that workers didn't accidentally spill 1 million gallons, they actually spilled 3 million gallons. Lots of arsenic is a picture of as it moves. That's the front end of the plume in August 2015. Okay, enough of pretty pictures. Here's the Colorado fact. There are 23,000 abandoned mine lands in Colorado. TPS is the source. CGSA conducted abandoned mine land inventory with the U.S. Forest Service from 91 to 98. They found that approximately 18,000 individual mine features were inventoried. How many people are in this room? 120? 23,000 enough. Not throughout the country. In Colorado. Here's the focus on the law. It's critical for you to understand a couple of things too about the law again. I've been practicing environmental and natural resource defense law for 44 years. I graduated CSU in 72, I graduated DU Law School in 75, in the middle of the environmental decade of 70. I cut my teeth as an environmental lawyer, representing a home state mining company on the Saguache County mill facility that Home State wanted to build a pitch project on Forest Service property in Saguache County. That's 1978, 1979, and 1980. At that time, the Forest Service had developed an environmental impact statement because of those activities for that proposed mill. The EIS went final. It was challenged by the National Wildlife Federation. And Luke Danielson and I, that's where I first met him, worked on that particular activity after I successfully defended my very first oral argument as a young lawyer was in front of the Deputy Forest Service in Washington, D.C., successfully defending the EIS on the Home State Fish Project. We came back, Luke Danielson and the National Wildlife Federation sat us down and said, listen, we're going to federal court, or we're going to work out this problem that we've got with your proposed mill in Saguache County. You've already got the open pit mine, you're in the mining clearing, you want to build a mill. Let's sit down and work it out. We successfully negotiated a resolution of those significant problems. And in fact, Luke Danielson and I wrote a law review article identifying the process. That's where I cut my teeth. For 44 years, I've been struggling with representing the home state mining companies of the world, Shell at the Rocky Mountain Arsenal, Unical, many other mining companies throughout the state, but I'm a defense trial lawyer. My main objective is to get you into compliance. My first objective as a client is to say, here are the regulations, get into compliance. Then, when you make a mistake and you have a problem, I try to help you out fix that problem. I spend 90% of my time in court or in front of administrative entities helping you resolve those permit issues or resolve those notices of violations or resolve those toxic tort lawsuits that have been filed against you by citizens living in the community. This particular focus, important for you to understand, because I'm promoting this bill for the legislature this year. We have a Senate sponsor. It's in front of the Legislative Drafting Council. I'm meeting with the Department of Health. I've met with DNR. And I'm meeting with anyone that I can talk to. Thank goodness Paul called me up and said, come talk to these people. These are the people you want to talk about. This law does not exist right now. I wrote this law. This law is written, premised on the Pennsylvania Good Samaritan law. I faced this issue 5 years ago. I represent a landowner who came to me. I've been representing him for a long time. He owns a lot of property in the state of Colorado. He came to me and he said, we got problems with the watershed. What are your problems? Upstream from me, my adjacent landowner has some mine tailings. And it's sending stuff down my way. And it's sending stuff on down the creek. I said, okay. He said, I've got the wherewithal to go help solve that problem. The problem source isn't on my property. The problem source is on the neighbor. I'm going to talk to him. I said, listen, we've got to do something. What are we going to do? Well, we're going to stabilize the tailings. We're going to put a diversion ditch above the tailings so you don't have water coming down and creating those mine-influenced waters. I've got the money. I've got the equipment. I can go do this. Watson, what are the legal issues? Well, Superfund, 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 Superfund. Okay, I've heard enough about all the good, bad, and the ugly. You told me about Superfund, Watson. What other issues have we got? If I provide the men and women the money and the equipment to go do what I've just described to you, reconfigure the tailings, ditch a boat to divert the water, stabilize, revegetate. Well, Superfund, Superfund, Superfund. Okay, well, what about all of these Good Samaritan initiatives that we talked about? You told me about the 2,000 boat run, blah, blah, blah. Yes, so we walked through that drill. He said, well, we got it made. Get going. Go talk to the Department of Health. Go talk to Regina EPA. Go talk to all that. And I said, hold it. Just a minute. Have you talked to the downstream landowners? No. Why would I worry about them? I'm fixing the problem. Well, we talked about citizen suits at the Superfund level, the federal level. Well, we don't have citizen suits in the state of Colorado under record hazardous waste, et cetera. What else have we got to worry about? Have you ever heard about torts? I eat a lot of them. Not those kind of torts. Your downstream landowner, let's assume like a stop watering pond that breaches, and instead of coming down, you might be pretty upset about that. But if you're in any way isolating minerals, and you get a 1,000-year rain, you get a 1,000-year flood, and those minerals that you've stabilized, took you 5 years to plant and 3 weeks to fix, right? What are you exposed to? Well, whether you've already worked out a deal with your current landowner downstream, what if they sold that property? And I walked through nuisance, negligence, public nuisance. Well, what are you talking about? Well, that's common law. It's not statutory. Came out of English common law. Sometimes it's defined on the books. Sometimes nuisance negligence is defined in the statute. But in the normal course, we're talking about judge-made law. And yes, these landowners, no matter if we've got it, worked out and had a handshake deal. Okay, we're going to go do this. No matter how much comfort you've given them, you're still exposing yourself. You say, okay, then I'm done. And he walked away. It took us a year to get to that walkaway. It wasn't driven by the Superfund concerns. Basically, I'm the team that persuaded him. I persuaded we were going to be able to work out a deal with EPA. We're going to be able to work out permitting issues with Department of Health. He says, I can control those people because I'm doing an AOC. I'm getting a comfort letter, something. What does the stock market like? Certainty. I got certainty with them. I'll take that to a court of law with you, Watson, any day of the week. I can't control these people. I said, no, you can't. You walk away from it. That's the genesis of this law. First of all, now we're diving into it. This particular law, by the way, next question. That particular client is not funding the whole thing. I'm not getting paid a penny to promote this legislation. I didn't get paid a penny to write this legislation. Everything I'm doing is for free. It's important for you to understand because I am known in the state of Colorado for 44 years as a polluter's lawyer. Home Safe Mining Company, Shell at the Arsenal, Unicap. And if you say John Watson's behind this, they're going to say, okay, who's paying you? Is it Shell this time? Is it Unicap this time? Is it Home Safe Mining Company this time? No, no one is paying me. And if someone were to come to me and say, we'll help you, I will say no. I have no interest in being painted with that brush. This is a piece of the puzzle that is now missing that we need in the state of Colorado. Pennsylvania is the only state that has a law like this. With that in mind, Colorado should be number 2 on the list. First of all, the law does not trump any federal law. Clean air, clean water, record Superfund, all alive and well after this bill passes. The proposed law protects provides incentives and attempts to remove roadblocks to encourage and allow Good Sam's to deal with others to reclaim abandoned lands. The proposed legislation is based on Pennsylvania statute. That one's been around for 20 years. Here's a link to it. Brief outline of the Colorado proposal. How many timelines? Okay. Act's purpose: protect landowners, groups, and individuals who volunteer for projects protects them from civil and environmental liability at the state level. Doesn't have any impact on Superfund, doesn't have any impact on any federal law at the state level. It protects against those tort lawsuits for nuisance and negligence by adjacent landowners downstream owners. Laws intended to encourage landowners and others to move forward. You know, if this happened to me in a court of law, a judge would put me in jail. Okay. I can make the bill available to you. This is one of the issues. The Colorado Department of Public Health and the Department of Natural Resources would review project proposals and will administer and review project proposals to determine project eligibility. In other words, they do the same type of thing as now goes on in the Voluntary Cleanup Act. You go into an area, into the department and say, listen, we want to do a VCAP operation. You submit a plan, and they look over your shoulder while you implement it. One of the issues is, as I met with the Department of Health yesterday, do we want to be the lead agency, Department of Health, in accepting this proposal and approving them under law, or maybe just DNR? That's something we're going to have to work out. Who's eligible? Any landowner who provides access without charging compensation, charging rate compensation, water abatement process. Additionally, any person, corporation, nonprofit organization, government entity that participates is eligible for protection if they provide equipment, materials, and services. No problem. Did not cause or create the problem. We're not ordered by government to fix it. We're not, in other words, you're not a PRP. You're not on the receiving end of those crosshairs by EPA or the state. We're not performing the work under contract with problems, project, competitive bid project, not covered. And you're not the surety that you shoot a bond for. You're not covered. Otherwise, you're eligible. What types of land reclamation projects are covered? Restore mineral extraction lands, includes areas where the mine operator has stored bonds on the site, typical conditions such as not limited to abandoned mine pits, underground mine entrance, refuge pile, and unplugged oil and gas wells. This is one of the other issues. I'll be meeting with the Colorado Oil and Gas Association to determine the extent to which they want to be part of this deal. Some preliminary discussions said, well, we're not sure. Everyone I've talked to, the governor's office, the Department of Health, Department of Natural Resources, the Colorado Mining Association, it says, we don't want you to represent that we're on board for any of this, John. We want to hear about it. Let's vet it. Let's discuss it. Let's collaborate and fix it if there are problems. One of the issues is, does the oil and gas industry want to be part of it? The Pennsylvania law covers abandoned oil and gas wells. Should this bill? I don't know. Abandoned structures, state agencies must approve each project, determine the project would not cause water pollution. What types of water pollution projects are covered? Any abatement project that treats or stops water pollution caused by abandoned mines or oil and gas wells. Project proposals must be capable of improving water quality. What protections are provided to landowners? Landowners provide access, not responsible for injury or damage to the person who is restoring the land or treating the pollution while the person is on the project area. So, protects them from people working on the project. You break a leg, you get hurt, you're not going to be hurt, landowner. Without this type of protection, a landowner isn't going to let you anywhere near their facility. They're protected from injury or damage to a person that is caused by the people restoring the land. Protected from injury or damage to a person as a result of the project. That's that's where we talk about the downstream water. We got that flood and it moved more tailings down. Well, you worked on it, didn't you? Want it to be protected from any pollution may be caused by the project or the operation, maintenance, or repair of the water pollution equipment, etc. You know, this could turn into like a Macarena.
Hey, John. Why don't you just point at me and all the chance?
Okay. Thank you. Are there exceptions to protections for the landowners? Yes. Landowners are not protected if the project damages adjacent or downstream landowners, and those individuals have not received a written public notice of the proposed project. That notice is given while the agencies are reviewing the project. So what's the deal there? My situation. I want to go up and fix this above me. I'm worried about guys down below. I come and talk to you and I say, listen, here's notice of what we're going to go do. I give you notice, comprehensive notice. You have the ability to come and collaborate, be a part of the stakeholder process for the review of what we're doing. Landowner protection. I give you notice. You don't give them the notice, and of course, by regulation, the agency will have to develop the notice. You don't give them the notice, you're not protected. In addition, landowner is not protected under the act if the project damages adjacent. Okay, one more. Okay, all protections available to individuals who participate. Watson goes out and volunteers. A nonprofit organization goes out and volunteers. Not responsible for same things. Next slide. What about exceptions? Not protected if you cause an increase in pollution activities that are unrelated to the work, deliberately or recklessly cause injury, or you violate the law. Same type of exceptions for the landowners. Any exceptions to the protection? Okay, continuing. Additionally, participants are not protected if the project damages adjacent downstream waters and no notice is given. Basically, mirror images, dealer. There are protections for landowners and individuals. There are exceptions to those protections. Basically, mirror images. Yes. Act does not trump federal law. The Act provides protection under state law only, does not apply. While Colorado agencies might be Department of Health as lead, might be DNR as lead, they might be cooperating agencies. We can write the bill any way we want. It'll probably be driven by the reactions we get from the Department of Health and DNR. Who wants to be the lead on this? Do you want to be cooperating? Do you want to both be mentioned or law or not? We don't know yet. While the agencies determine eligibility, the agencies do not have the authority to make legal rulings on who receives protections from liability. Let's assume that I have given notice to you as a downstream owner. You participated as a stakeholder. Nevertheless, you sue. Do the agencies resolve that battle? No. Who decides the issue? The judge in the court of law. I'm back in court. Losing more of my stomach lining in what here I have. If a landowner or participant in a project is sued for injury or damage, they should. This is what I would say to my client. You've got to use, just like you would use a comfort letter from EPA, just like you would use a no further action letter from the State Department of Health, and you'd go to that judge and you'd say, listen, I got approval for this project, and here's the whole record of what we did over the last 5 years. It took us 3 years, 3 weeks to fix it, but it took us 5 years to get it. You bring that record in front of the judge, but only the judge is going to determine liability or not. How does anyone get protection? Only a project approved by the agencies. They'll develop a project proposal form. All they have to do is print from Pennsylvania's form. All they have to do is duplicate Pennsylvania's laws. Of course, Pennsylvania doesn't have the issues we do. A third of Colorado's federal land. Pennsylvania has 1.2 hectares that are federal land. We don't have coal issues in this regard here. They got coal issues. We don't have the money. They got smack more money all around us. They got buildings. Okay, so we're very different states, but in terms of regulations and reforms, you just take it wholesale and you tweak it. No, it's really easy for Watson to write this stuff and hand it to an agency and let them tweak it. Okay, each proposal must identify the project. Distance landowners, describe the location, the environmental problems, establish a work plan. Familiar? Yes. Thanks. Agency will evaluate the proposal, determine if it's capable of reclaiming the land. Agency will look over your shoulder. They'll advise participants on any permits. First question from the Department of Health yesterday when we met with them. What about permits? This is not like Superfund. Superfund is a process statute. Exempts you from certain permits. This doesn't. This doesn't change that. You need an NPDS permit or a CPDS permit, Colorado Pollution Discharge Elimination System permit for that water treatment plant. You're going to get it from the Department of Health. You need a DNR reclamation permit. You're going to get it from DNR. This doesn't change that. Once a project is approved, the agencies maintain a permanent record of the distance landowners who will be protected under the law. Always start with individual. Particularly pretty much. Go ahead. Before and after. It works. Go. Before and after. Really works. Go. This is Missouri Harmony Lake. Magnificent. Next. Eagle Mine. This is what it looks like before you got our act together into that. This is not me. I'm on the other side of the Taylor's file because I've just fallen down and I'm rolling down the hill. This is not a real picture from Watson. Okay, go ahead. There you have it. New law. I want you to support it. I want you to critique it. I want you to say, Watson, you're crazy. I want you to say, Watson, we don't need it. We have so much money and we have so much cooperation with EPA. Mr. Cook has come to us and given us everything we ever needed. We don't need this law. We need this law.
Okay, so we're going to go into, we have 15, 20 more minutes. We have 12, 15. Is that right?
Yeah, 40 minutes.
We're going to go into questions that we have, and before we do so, are there questions anybody wants to ask me of the panel members at this time?
Your earlier examples of status quo for good Samaritan definitions always employed the word emergency, suggesting that the situation, in that situation, time was of the essence. I don't see that reflected in your
This, you're correct. The question relates to whether or not the earlier Good Samaritan laws, all 56 have to deal with emergencies, car crashes, etc. Someone who's just here, etc. And that's what those focus on. And it was very purposeful that this bill not focus on that. We don't want an emergency situation. We want to be able to resolve the problem now before it becomes an emergency situation. So yeah, it could easily deal with a cold-chain situation, but not limited to that, purposefully.
Thanks for walking through all that in such detail. I'm curious, it seems like such an obvious piece of legislation to have in place. So I'm curious historically what has been the hurdle to getting this approved and then what you foresee being the hurdles actually getting this approved in 2020.
The only hurdle for this not being approved in the past is it has never been proposed. Ever. And that's why 5 years ago when I had this question, I started looking at it. I started drafting bills. This particular person was willing to support me in bringing this to the legislature, so I started drafting bills. Found the research, Pennsylvania's the only statute. Every time we ran into issues that was focused on federal preemption. And so I kept looking back at the, and I finally, literally, at 3 o'clock in the morning, I had this brain short circuit and said, why are you trying to write a brand new bill, Watson? Duplicate and tweak the Pennsylvania bill. It worked. It's worked for 20 years. So it's never been proposed. In terms of the hurdles, I don't know yet. I don't know if the Oil and Gas Association cares, if Casey cares, if the Mining Association will support or not. They're aware of it. I tried to get this proposed last year, and it was suggested to me, truthfully, their There's so much on the governor's agenda right now, we can't get it into the legislative mix. So a year later, I mean, these processes are very slow. This evolution, I remember many years ago representing a woman in Pitkin County who had a residential property on a Taylor's lot. Theoretically, at that time, Superfund exposed her to Superfund cleanup liability because she was the owner of metals that were leaking into the watershed. As a result of the evolution by EPA, first regulations, then Congress said, yeah, this is a good idea. There are exemptions for residential owners. Within a year, I represented a commercial firm within a quarter mile of her property who wanted to build condominiums. Didn't go, didn't happen. Why? There's no exemptions for commercial development. On the same pile of dirt, on the same pile that was causing a problem in the watershed. We since then have Congress with brownfields. This is an evolution that, as I reviewed it starting 5 years ago, I was shocked that it had never been proposed before. So I'm hoping by being completely open about this bill and asking for your help, we will get the support and get it passed through the legislature. It is a win-win for everyone. It is a win-win for everyone. It gets things done. It doesn't provide money. We've got money coming from the severance fund, severance taxes, into 319 projects. We need money. The oil pollution, the OPA fund that helps with the cleanup of gas stations and releases of petroleum is funded by money coming from the petroleum industry. We don't have funding for this. That's one of the big issues that was raised just yesterday. We talked to her blue in our face yesterday at the Department of Health. What is the fiscal impact? First question, what's the fiscal impact to this bill? And my response was, I'm not expecting a floodgate to open for projects through this bill. If 3 get done in the next 5 years, I'm going to be happy. That's fiscal impact for the administrator of it, the Department of Health. The other issue is perhaps we can amend this bill to take a portion of severance taxes and dedicate it to this. But I don't know what the purpose will be.
Yeah, we might want to go ahead and we've got some questions. You might save them for the end, if that's okay.
So this is for the panel initially, and then people please weigh in. In your opinion, how effective is Superfund in resolving concerns at historic mining sites, and what concerns do you have with using Superfund to remediate mining sites? Do you want to start?
You know, I was around, being old enough, working for CGSA when many of these sites were actually listed. And that was in the 1980s. I guess that was 3 years. And I was working for Bob Arnott then. And as it turns out, when I look at that list, the smuggler mine is gone, and probably part of the Glenville site. Everything else is still on the list. That's 30 years. Eagle, you're right, Eagle, and I should know that because that's our client. But so the young guy remembers that. So the reality is it takes a long time. The process is complex, and so that seems to be. And these are complex sites, and so I think it's difficult to get there right now. And that has been my concern. Certainly the adaptive management approach might help us some.
So I'll take a shot at this. I don't know if you can say yes or no. I guess the question is, what's the alternative? I don't know what the answer to that either. But I will just take the opportunity to say that really what needs the most important thing that has to happen, that hasn't happened, is a fix at the federal level by Congress to fix the Clean Water Act to allow for good Samaritans, so that good actors, good Samaritans, are not assuming Clean Water Act risk. That is what I think Congress is really drilling down on. I think there's productive discussions that probably fixes a lot of the questions associated with whether or not Superfund's the right mechanism. I heard a lot of different discussions about how cleanups are being done in partnerships. Congress charged the agency with addressing these kinds of sites and other industrial sites and government sites. And when they need a funding source, they're going to go out and find those deep pockets. John mentions the underground storage program. While the underground storage program is still relevant because you have a huge number of sites that still need to be remediated today. I mean, new sites need to be remediated, not just historical sites. So the general public is really paying into that fund at $100 a truckload. It's really a good program, particularly in Colorado, but I don't know if there's an alternative. And that's probably bad on me for not being able to do that.
Money. Follow it, get it. Solves all our problems. Superfund's empty.
Is there any opportunity to re-up the petrochemical tax? I think it's been proposed 15 times.
There you go. Proposed 15 times, you're absolutely right. And I think Stan mentioned earlier, you're probably familiar with Senator Gardner's bill. Senator Gardner's bill, a good spirited bill. And its focus, we chose not to go through the detail of that, but it was proposed and introduced 2 years ago. Its focus is creating 15 pilot projects and providing federal money to go deal with it. And it deals with all these issues, solves all these. I think Stan's absolutely right. It's not just in terms of a 50 statewide fix. It's at the federal level, whether it's Clean Water Act, whether it's Superfund, whether it's 2037, whether it's Gardner's bill or whatever. You've got federal limitations that are hunkering down on us and stopping us from moving forward. And you've heard about it already. EPA admits it. We all acknowledge it. So if we can get our Congress to do something, yeah, go there. This isn't a one-shot deal. This is a piece of a massive puzzle.
Is there anybody else that wants to just comment on that question before we move on at this point?
Mr. Cook is anxious to address that. He's sitting back there.
He's hiding pretty well. I don't know if see him through the line, man.
Mr. Cook is allowed to provide technical assistance to representatives of Congress.
So, the Bermuda Peak here is located within a highly mineralized area, and natural background is a significant factor in metalworking and streams. Any thoughts on how natural background contamination should be considered in establishing site-wide cleanup goals? You want to tackle that,
Errors. I mean, it's the analysis you go through under Superfund. It's the analysis that the Department of Health goes through whenever you deal with NPDES discharge limits, PMDL, whatever it may be. So I think natural background is really critical for all of these things. And I think for the last 40 years, the agencies have done a reasonably good job of acknowledging it. Whether or not it actually ends up in permanent limitations, is a side-by-side, either success story or failure.
It's maybe a little bit off the topic. I guess the question is, recently, within my group in my association, we're really struggling with permit limits and permit conditions. I've seen more litigation going on with the agency by operators than I ever have in 30 years. We happen to have a meeting today with the Department of Public Health and Environmental Control Division. Really a number of issues, and overlay this on top of it. It was really helpful to hear Peter's description of the history of the stream setting standards that have been developed in the past. But think we're gonna have a harder and harder time. And we've got still a widening division between water quality control division and the RMS creation of water quality laws in Colorado. We're not seeing much coordination. So I'm kind of bearing that dirty laundry a little bit. I think we're gonna have a tough time.
Can I solicit your way in on that? Question?
You know, I think I already kind of did in my presentation to some degree.
Sure.
That you're not going to get the natural background. I mean, you're not going to clean up all these different mine sites. And I think the approach that we took was, let's look and see what we think is feasible, because we know we're not going to get to that natural background. The only place where a natural background could really come into play is if you did some kind of treatment of, say, cement. If you put a treatment plant like on cementcrete to offset all the different draining adits throughout the basin, then you have a condition where natural background would really come into play. But if you're doing work at specific mine sites, unless you have really high background rate in the groundwater right around that mine site, you're just not going to get there anyway. I think it's good to have a sense that natural background plays a large role, but from a feasibility standpoint, you're not going to remediate those sites to that level.
Thanks for bringing that up. Well,
It's pretty clear if you look at the Superfund statute that agencies are not supposed to clean up levels beyond the background. That's not within their mandate. The problem seems to be the technical issues of trying to establish what natural background really is. And we can spend millions of dollars trying to sort out what that actually is and not be totally sure. I mean, that seems to be the problem. So it's almost paralysis by analysis. And that, and I think the approach that the Water Quality Control Commission has taken as far as trying to come up with these standards is appropriate. Your regulations, Peter, do recognize that natural background is a contributing factor in this. I just think technically in any given urbanization, it's going to be hard to sort that out without a lot of study.
Well, there are successes. There are successes. Remember when Richard Nixon signed the Clean Air Act in 1970, went through air quality control region development, and when Colorado did its monitoring, the west slope was not attainment for ozone. The west slope. Why? Because of the sunlight's interaction with sagebrush. And we finally figured that out. It was a background issue. It was a natural background issue. So I agree with Mr. Cook. I'm a firm believer, I tell my kids, I'm an optimist from day one. It's in my zygote. It's in the DNA. Technology works. That's why it's so wonderful to get people like this together. Technology can solve our problems. There are way too many people on the planet. When I was born in 1950, there were 2.5 billion people on the planet. When I die in 2050 at age 100, that's my goal. There will be 11.7 billion people on the planet. That means in my one lifetime, the population on the planet will have doubled twice. Technology is going to fix it. Ain't going to be easy.
I got a question here. Have any of you guys used the presence of what's called Faro Creek at the Red and Bonita sites in Seaman Creek as an argument that, thousands of years ago, the natural background in these streams was very, very poor. A lot of heavy metals. Have you ever run into that argument for a mine owner to say, well, why should we spend millions and millions of dollars? It's always been a problem. Have you used that specific Faro?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. I know USGS has studied that, Nazaryk has studied that, a number of people have. Again, this is actually the perfect opportunity. If you ever would develop a new mine in this area, it's good to study the problem now so you know the background. We didn't do that in the 1870s. And so you're exactly right, though. Faro Creek it is a big issue out there.
And it's very visible. I mean, it's material. It's not theoretical.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to pick up on the technology comment. Instead of focusing on street water quality standards, wouldn't an alternative approach be to focus on best management practices and say, this is what we can do today, this is where we're at, let's do that, see what we get, and go from there. Deal with the 90% of the load that you can deal with from the 30 dumps and see what you get. And say, that's the standard, guys, because that's what we got. Rather than trying to push to the bleeding edge of a water quality standard based upon a hypothetical background. We know what we can do.
I agree with you. You gotta change the Colorado law to get there.
We'd have to change the law. You'd have to say, for these types of situations, we're going to use a BMP approach. Can't have tailings in the stream.
But the departments, the agencies are,
And I agree with Stan. The Colorado law is a good start with the federal law too, because you're still subject to all of them.
yeah, if the state walks away from what Clean Water Act dictates, they lose privacy.
Right.
They lose the delegation of the program. So we may actually be able to persuade the department, no, that's a great idea. Let's go to DC to talk about.
What institutional barriers do you see that tend to discourage payment volunteer actions? Mine sites, we talked about them, but I don't think we need to talk about them.
We've gone through that.
What changes could EPA make, if any, to support encouraging and create voluntary cleanups in an overall cleanup program?
Mr. Cook, no.
Go ahead. Entire money district. Right. That's the operative boards, and I'm not sure that's what we try to tackle in the past. I think John and others have mentioned about Colorado voluntary cleanup law. What was kind of missing is voluntary cleanup law in Colorado is successful, partly due for a lot of good cooperation by the applicant, like the agency. Sometimes you have to put an institutional control, covenant in there to say, just how we can define this. And I think that would be something that we can look at a BCAP approach that may have a certain future.
Well, I think it focuses as much, and let's use VCUP as an example. Theoretically, EPA can come in and trump VCUP. It's EPA's Department of Justice resistance from enforcing the federal law against marijuana use and sale that allows the 27 states to now have either recreational or medical marijuana. It's the hesitation on behalf of the federal agencies to trump our state law. I think they can continue to do that. I think that's one of the main focuses of the 2012 guidelines, to get the Superfund comfort letters. So I think one of the major, I don't know if it's about major changes that EPA can make, because they're handcuffed by the federal law. They're handcuffed by what Congress has done. But we have 50 years of EPA pushing the envelope with regulations that then Congress says, well, that's a good idea, let's change the law. We had exceptions to the Superfund in guidelines, regulatory guidelines, before we ever had the brownfield law. So EPA can continue to resist enforcing where they otherwise could, and they can go to Congress and say, oh, by the way, this is working. Our guidelines are working. Why don't we change the law so we can give certainty to the people that are exposed to it?
So what are your thoughts on good sand legislation, both at the national and state level? I think that's been discussed today, but maybe everybody, or not everybody, but anybody who's interested in weigh in. I'll work for it.
So, let me say, and I'm very clear. The folks I work with are very clear about the fixed lot of good work's been going on. There's good dialogue going on between a lot of interested parties. I think Trout Unlimited on a national basis is really trying to hone in on what those key differences are and how to get people, particularly in the Senate, in position to support that. It looks like it's getting further along. And since we talked about this before, Senator Salazar was pushing this. There's been tremendous work by both sides of the aisle to try to bridge these differences, but politics does play a big role in the way, both senators are positioning themselves on that. With regards to the state Superfund, we, as the Colorado Mining Association, and I think a lot of other organizations will want to take a close look at the draft legislation that John's proposing. And as a trade association, we work fairly methodically, to get the legislation in front of our members. That's up and down the organization, a lot of legal review. John's put out a proposal that deserves to get response back. I think the question is, can any state do much about Good Samaritan or not? John's put something out there on the table talking about immunity or some legal protection. A couple of thoughts that I was watching the presentation. So many of the statutes that John mentioned were passed, I'd say, in a different era, in the era of tort reform and the interest by legislators to try to deal with the legal system. I think this General Assembly is not going to be as eager to grant liability protection as eagerly as it did in the past. We have a completely different legislature in terms of who controls it. I think trial lawyers are incredibly powerful, a very powerful influence right now, and we need to be thinking about what their response is going to be. I think when we talk about liability, then who has it now, who will have it in the future, how does that all work? And we're going to have to think very carefully about the agency review of the projects. We don't have a position on the bill, but we'll be working and interacting with John and other stakeholders just to get a reaction on the bill. Because I will tell you, we can't just go to the General Assembly without all our I's dotted and our T's crossed. And I will tell you, we're not very happy with the way House Bill 13 was passed last year. It was a bill that talked about protection of water quality, but it really just was a reflection of agency activity that was ongoing anyway. And the dialogue around that bill was not positive experience. And it's on our minds with the way, really, the state of Colorado had to broker the deal on that bill. And we weren't even able to get to a position of neutrality. So I would just say, we are very cautious before we start to engage the General Assembly on these hardball issues.
Yeah, real quick, I have a couple of points here. One is, I think states can serve as models for the federal government. They're sort of incubate, and Colorado could be that in this sense, sort of setting the stage for some national legislation. We've been around since Ken Salazar. Various bills have been introduced, and the reality is the Western Governors Association supported them, and all throughout the West there was wide support, but it was not a priority in other places. Other places in the country, back east in the Midwest, it just wasn't a big concern. So the good news now is we're getting almost a bipartisan consensus on what needs to be included in this legislation. And I think that is the most hopeful thing that I've seen. So,
let me follow up on that. Understand where the Clean Air Act came from. The only reason we have the Clean Air Act is because the fifth largest country in the world, California, passed our own emission standards for clean air in 1965. And the people who passed that legislation in Sacramento, California, then got elected to the US Congress and brought that idea to Congress. And in 1970, we then had a law that covered all 50 states. Paul is absolutely right. Colorado can be and should be the model for this win-win legislation. Answer to this question, we need it at the national level, we need it at the state level.
Right now, there's getting ready to be a big disagreement between the federal government and the state governments. Because like in the emission standards, California has set them out for cars, and 34 states have joined in. What do you think is going to happen down the road between states' rights and federal rights? I see it coming to a head sooner or later.
It will end up in the Supreme Court of the United States. And the lawyers are the ones that are going to make money. So I can put my grandkids through college. And that's where it'll end up.
You have a question, Bill?
My question is that, it seems to me that most people would agree that the support of good Samaritan on a national level. But there's always been one major sticking point, and that is that the issue of realigning comes up, and this is our experience at MISG, is that we go back to supporting the Christian introduced by Representative McKinley. Before Kenneth by 3 or 4 years. But reminding is a major sticking point. I'd like to challenge landowners or any other environmental group that chose to actually collaborate with mining companies. That is a true good Samaritan and an interest in mine to develop a remediation effort that is able to remine an existing mine. And that collaboration, that joint effort would be the remediation process being realized and thereby having support from both sides. So you could actually develop a project that was a good Samaritan project that would function to be profitable and yet clean up the environment. And I think that's been lacking when we've had the Samaritan bills come up in the past, is that the two sides, the environmental side and the mining side, are at odds with one another. And collaboration.
I very much appreciate the question because I know Reimagining is an issue in the discussion with John Unlimited and stakeholders in Senator Gardner's office. I think they're trying to narrow down whatever differences there are. I mean, I'm not trying to say that it's all going to get solved, but I think we references to it this morning that it's an important component of a particular project. But I'll tell you, my biggest concern is that perhaps Colorado may have screwed it up last year with House Bill 13, with language in that bill that may or may not affect the ability to, on a statewide basis, to work on our reclamation plan. So we may make progress on the federal level. We may have gone backwards and gone
We're going to go on to the next question. I do want to bring something up I was listening to earlier, something that Marcy and I have talked about. And earlier it was said about the Superfund and there's hands tied, and I get that. There's also, and maybe it's not applicable, it's hard to read through the U.S. code sometimes. I think it's been called inside the Gold King litigation more complex than the tax code, the Superfund. But there's a statute 42 U.S. 9660B that talks about alternative technologies and innovation. And I'm not sure why that couldn't be used by the administrator, Administrator Wheeler, we've identified this as a pilot project, we've identified it as part of the adaptive management. To the extent that that statute could be used, just like all the other statutes are used, in trying to support some of the innovative technologies here. That just kind of goes in with these questions and how we're going to approach things differently. But I hope that we can keep that dialogue going as we continue, and maybe, not necessarily in the next 5 minutes, but as we go forward. And maybe it doesn't apply to where we are. There might be an exception, but there is a provision in the code for that. Yes.
Over here. I was just going to point out for everybody to make sure we're all on the same page. The federal legislation that's being discussed right now is in fact itself pilot projects. It's trying to authorize pilot projects. So while it does affect statute at the federal level, we're not trying to authorize just this broad sweeping authorization of projects all over the country. It narrows it to 15 projects in the first 10 years, I believe, to try to prove up the concept of voluntary cleanups by Good Samaritan. I just want to make that really clear for everybody that that's what's being discussed right now is authorizing pilot projects.
So with federal money.
I'm sorry?
With federal money.
Your point?
That's the critical thing. We keep coming back to money. That's why the legislation is exceptionally helpful. We need to get that camel nose under the tent.
Thank you. And that's on the federal stand.
Correct.
15 sites across the United States. And is this site one of them, or is this preempted because of the Superfund?
Preempted because of the Superfund.
I just want to clarify. So what is the best way to establish a national dialogue on more effective and efficient ways to deal with problems of abandoned mines and historic mines?
Ground up. Right here, ground up. And we have administrators in the room who are being very attentive, which we really appreciate. We think you've got some great ideas. We think we've got some great ideas.
You know, having lived in a country where mining was a large part of the economy in Australia, there's a real different dialogue there around mining than there is in the U.S. And here it tends to be a lot more adversarial. There it's viewed as part of the economy and part of how they get on. I think we have an opportunity as we move into more renewable energy to have a discussion about sustainable minerals and where the minerals are going to come from to power our renewable energy transition. And I think engaging the populace into understanding the important role that mining plays in that would be a really good opportunity to kind of raise the profile of the mining industry in the U.S. in terms of its national importance.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Thank you.
You know, the other way I think you would help establish a national dialogue is you have to have case studies and examples where somebody's done something different or unique, not unlike we just talked about with different states doing unique things that then are kind of brought back up to the federal level. But I think that there is an opportunity, for example, here in the Andes Basin, with the adaptive management program, the priorities that we've got, to really document where we're going and how this works in this particular basin. And that's a way that you can further the national dialogue.
I think we have time for maybe one more. Maybe that's left. So the Superfund taxes expired, cleanups are now funded by EPA, annual appropriations or through enforcement against ERPs. How effective is this approach? What suggestions do you have to improve the process? What can alternative funding mechanisms be considered? What would be the best way to actually fund the Superfund? That's really all of it on the wall, isn't it?
It sure is. The last time I tried to answer this question, I got ganged up by Ryan Bennett and Stan. So I'm going to leave it to other people.
So what are the thoughts, while we have a couple more minutes from, did you have anything else, Stan or John? Okay. What are the thoughts in general? It doesn't have to be this question, but as we have this discussion. Sure. Dennis?
I was just like to hear more from the panel on how the adaptive management is going to be reconciled with this current rigid Superfund process. I mean, learning by doing sounds good, but there was a major learning doing event that happened on August 5th, 2015. And I also think that if this is going to be successful, there has to be more engagement with downstream communities in 3 states and 3 tribes.
Boy, that is a great question. There's this tension between what Superfund traditionally, how it was handled, the EPA dealt with it versus this new approach. And I think the people in the field, the project managers, the site managers, are going to really be walking a fine line and trying to look for opportunities to really come to solutions that they can, quick solutions, not necessarily, and solutions that don't aggravate a problem further down the line. So this is going to be a real dynamic process, and that is no answer to the question, but I think you summed it up.
My understanding at headquarters is that there is, or at least in this process, this adaptive management process, that's going to be developed, and the actual construct of that over the next 3 to 6 months. Some of it already has been. And so I think we'll be watching and engaging as that opportunity comes available, and then we'll have to see. We're not going to be going out of the statute anytime soon. I don't think it's being changed in Washington, proposed to be changed anytime. So it's going to have to remain inside on the tracks, right?
Yeah, just like it. So one of the reasons why we're doing these 6 pilots is to learn from them before we put a policy out. So instead of saying, oh, we have to here's the policy, we go forth and do good. We want to learn is the questions like you just asked. That's the kind of thing we want to try and integrate into the policy so we can minimize our missteps from the beginning and then have to do it. So that's sort of like do the pilot, learn from the, bring it back in, do a guidance document, and then make adjustments. So the question that's on the board, and it relates directly to what this gentleman sitting in front of me just said around critical minerals. Money developed to support originally the Industrial Revolution. And we have a new 21st century issue arising, which is the need for critical minerals, in part for national defense, but also in part to fuel renewable energy. And this is a 21st century problem. I think we have an opportunity in front of us right now with this administration's push to develop critical minerals, to take that opportunity to create a funding mechanism at the same time, potentially to help fund and fill the gaps that Superfund funding makes.
This past summer, the Bureau of Reclamation triggered the drought contingency plan for the lower Colorado Basin. Does that provide an opportunity for additional funding for water quality upstream? Somebody mentioned earlier about end users, but that's a big issue, I think, that directly affects this site in particular.
I guess I raised that, and that's a question I don't have the answer to, but it's a really interesting thought that maybe we need to look at. Maybe John knows. No, that's okay. Yes, he was the teacher, I was the student.
That's a great creative thought. Thank
name, Carl, I love it. And that is actually where we're headed this afternoon, is looking at how do we fund these things and how do we start thinking creatively like that, bringing in these other mechanisms with some great speakers that are going to go there. But before we go there, I want to stop here for just a moment and ask Peter Butler and Phil Simon to please let us in this audience today just give you a huge round of appreciation for your leadership and your dedication to the cause. And I think the depth of conversation and the understanding that this group of people and many around the state and the nation have on Good Samaritan legal issues and watershed collaboration has really been driven by your success. And for the success of anyone who ever participated in the Animas River Stakeholders Group as a member or participant in one of those projects, you also own a part of that too. So y'all please join me in a round of applause. There's in the group now, the mining district that are in the most recent. Some of you have been at the table for years, and Dan Wall and I have stood on some rocks together, scratching our heads. What seems like a flash. It's been years. We'll be here a good bit longer working towards this, and I'm excited about moving the problem in a new direction. And I want to say thank you very much for this idea of adaptive management and the bravery it's taking to bring it forward. It's hard to think on your feet and in public in front of millions of people. And I think I want to just say thank you to those that are doing it and making that effort at EPA and those that are participating in CAG and all the other places to try and really help figure out what that means. It reminds me of the original days when we were talking about ARSG and the water problem. It's a thorny problem, but the thing that, I just said, it's in our zygote, it's in our DNA. Everyone here is here because we're inspired by finding solutions to problems, and we're going to keep up that charge. If we wanted to just make a buck in a world that was easy, I think we'd be trying to take people to outer space or something like that, right? So thank you for being here for the joy of trying to fix this problem. So with that, we today are going to send you out into this beautiful world around Silverton for lunch, and we hope you'll take some time to enjoy it. We're going to be back here at 1:45 for, this is a perfect lead-in to new approaches and funding and partnerships. We have a list of some places that you, if you're the list kind of looker, then we have a list of Silverton restaurants, so you can ask one of us locals where to head. There will be trains arriving this afternoon, and so you'll have to dodge some tourists who are going, feed me hamburgers, sell me t-shirts. So look out for that. And while you're there, you might stop by Fetch's shop and buy a t-shirt. So happy. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you to our panelists and our speakers this morning. It's been awesome. We've kicked us off to a great start. And I look forward to seeing you back at 1:45. Thank you.
We don't need this one. It's not working anyway. Yeah.
I am like,